Welcome in to another episode of Betting the Pitch. I am your host, the real underscore G Warner on Twitter. Please, if you're watching there, hit that follow button. Trying to get those numbers up. If you're on YouTube, please hit subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. And I will read the most recent that I haven't read so far later in the podcast. Besides that, it's Friday, December 30th. Happy almost New Year. And we're going to go through the English Premier League, easy for me to say, and also Ligue 1 in France, because we have a bunch of new matches coming out, new lines, everything to bet, of course. And we're going to go through and try to find some winners. With that said, without further ado, all lines quoted on this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Also, you can get them down late with reduced juice. It's offered on almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Follow the link found in the podcast description below to fund your account and use the promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. Now that we're here, going to go through and try to have a best bet from each of the leagues and ultimate best bet as well. And let's get right into it. So we have Friday matches this afternoon here in the United States, actually live from South Carolina today, my mom's house, and trying to get all the way through the holidays and then back to Dallas, where hopefully it's not 4 degrees that I left right a few days ago. We'll start in England with West Ham hosting Brentford. Currently West Ham a half of a goal favorite. Over under is 2.5. West Ham, I thought, played a maybe expected brand of football against Arsenal. Unfortunately, they struggled with the Arsenal pace and the skill players that are a lot smaller. West Ham are a really tall team that are built to counterattack. They've not had a good season this year in the English Premier League. They brought in and spent a lot of money on players that have not really been performing. You could blame that on David Moyes, the manager, or you could blame that on the players or the upgrade, like Lucas Paqueta from Ligue 1 moving to the Premier League. Definitely a change there, but also you could say West Ham's offense is certainly not firing like a Olympique Lyonnais team was. And a team that's really built to score goals, where West Ham are built to defend. Brentford, on the other hand, our second season in the league, had a really good performance against Tottenham, but ultimately choked up a 2-0 lead. That's probably not sitting well for them, though. They'll probably take a point if you told them before the game started at home against a top 6 club. With all the fanfare and everything on high expectations for Tottenham to win the league this season. I think these are two teams, one, West Ham, that is trying to climb up the table because they've been really close to relegation, if not in that discussion. And that's very disappointing considering they're a European team last season. They crashed I guess they didn't crash. They were awesome in Europe this season. I think won almost every match in the Conference League and got through to knockout stages, but that doesn't come about till February. And ultimately winning the Conference League would do nothing if they got relegated. So there's probably a lot of pressure on West Ham. I don't know that London Stadium is that great of a home field advantage. I got to say, I don't really love the soccer stadiums that have tracks around the football pitch. And I feel like they should just move the stands closer, or set up something to get closer to the field and make it more of a home field advantage. Because I do feel like soccer has a massive home field advantage, unlike the National Football League, for example. And what seems to be a home court advantage is deteriorating in a lot of other sports. I think it still exists in soccer. But in this case, it doesn't really put the ball in the net. And I like what Brentford has shown this season. They've had a little bit more goal scoring than I think I would expect, a little bit worse defense, but their defenders have been hurt mainly for most of the season. They've got Ethan Pinnock back, and I feel like they're also playing away that they've got a few days left of Ivan Toney before a suspension for gambling, apparently. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but that would be a huge loss for him. But he was pretty good in the previous match against Tottenham and should be available for this one. So Brentford plus 1.5 is certainly an interest for me. The defenses so far since the break have been horrible. I think 7 out of 10 matches went over, maybe 8 out of 10 in the Premier League. Haven't looked great in France either. And I think West Ham, the nice part for this one is I feel like the route to goals for West Ham seem to be through headers, through set pieces. mainly. I don't really see them doing a lot out of the run of play. Brentford, on the other hand, I feel like do have a little bit more creativity. They're the underdog here in a really a road venue that doesn't seem to be too crazy. West Ham in the east of London, Brentford in the west of London, not too long of a trip, really. I think they're probably just training across the city. Also lean to under 2.5, though. Unders are endangered species at this point. Unfortunately, it seems like dead unders still lose due to ridiculous penalties, as we saw in Spain yesterday. And it's just really, really tough things that keep happening, big mistakes. So there's a little bit more safety, I think, in under 2.5 than on the Brentford side, getting 1/2 of a goal. But I do think Brentford can go in there and win this match. So winning a full bet on a draw seems to be worth it to me. Last but not least, on Friday, we have Liverpool and Leicester. Liverpool with a great showing against Aston Villa. Really kind of surprised me. We'll get more on the Aston Villa side, but Liverpool, of course, despite being up for sale, allegedly, they're also adding players. Cody Gakpo coming in the new year, and that's got to be a good sign for Liverpool and their kind of hopes to try to get their season back on track. They had a good win at Villa, and I thought really took advantage of a team that didn't play as defensively as you would expect. Now, in this matchup, we saw Leicester get blasted early against Newcastle and really didn't show much after that. Jamie Vardy looks like he's a substitute at this point, which maybe due to his age makes sense. He's not as fast as he used to be, and that was his game-changing, I guess, skill. I think Leicester have shown they can score goals and really had a good end to the first half of the season, if you call it that, right into the World Cup break, but had a really bad start to the year. Their defense is really questionable. Currently, Liverpool a 1 3/4 goal favorite. And over under is 3 1/4. So there's expected to be goals in this matchup. And I feel like when there are goals expected, that's not a good situation for an underdog, especially not a road underdog at that. And with all of Leicester's goal scoring problems, defending problems, I don't know that they can score enough to hang with Liverpool. I feel like over 3 1/4 is probably my strongest lean on this one. I don't really want to fade Liverpool. I think Leicester, they're probably their best chance to win here or to cover is to score a bunch of goals. Which doesn't feel good, really going on the road to Anfield. Moving to Saturday, we have New Year's Eve. Wolves host Manchester United in the early match on Saturday here in the United States. Also, I guess earliest match in England. Wolves a 1/2 goal underdog at home. Over under is 2.5. Manchester United are really, they're showing a lot lately. I feel like they got off the hook from a 2-1 goal off of a set piece from Nottingham Forest that would have changed that game going into halftime. And I don't think they were that much better to deserve a 3-0 victory, but they got one. Wolves with a crazy, incredible, one of the unders that went to die, unfortunately for me, last weekend with a 95th minute with 5 minutes added on. The last, at the death, essentially scoring on a big mistake from Everton late in the match. Wolves got that win. Julian Lopetegui is going to come in, and I think he's going to shore up a defense that really hasn't been Wolves' problem. It's been scoring goals. And I think that really impacts them in this matchup because they're only a 1/2 goal underdog at home, which seems really short to me. It definitely says the market likes Wolves and I think expects a lot out of them. But I don't know why you would expect that anything positive from Wolves. They haven't shown anything besides that late winner against Everton for a year and a half now, it feels like. Over under 2.5. I don't think that Wolves are really going to contribute much to goal scoring in that one, but unfortunately, as Wolves fall behind, they're going to push forward to try to score goals. And they've going to have to push forward a lot because they have not scored any goals really for years now. And I don't really like that setup. Manchester United, they still under Ten Hag. I think they want to possess the ball more, but are still at their best using their pace on the counterattack. And I feel like there's a lot of avenues for Manchester United to score on their own. But then also if they do get ahead, Wolves are going to really open like a book. And unfortunately, that's not a good setup for Wolves plus 1/2 or Wolves under 2.5. I think I'd lean under 2.5 as my biggest lean. And that's Wolves trying to keep Manchester United out for as long as possible. But I don't love their chances, and I really don't like it if they go behind. Bournemouth then hosts Crystal Palace. Currently, Bournemouth a pick'em, but all the juice on Crystal Palace on the road. Over under is 2 1/4. And Crystal Palace had a really disastrous start to this second half of the season, post World Cup break, with finishing with 9 players, losing 3-0 at home, nonetheless, where they're usually a lot better. They do have road problems, to say the least. Bournemouth went to Chelsea and I thought were competitive, kept the match under despite falling behind with 2 goals in the 22nd, I think 25th minute. Didn't really do a lot to threaten Chelsea, but that's kind of a big expectation for, or would have been against expectation, because considering Bournemouth are a team that are just recently promoted, trying to stay in the league. They do play a counterattacking style. I do feel like both these teams in this matchup will be both trying to play counterattacking, and it might be like, you have the ball, no, you have it type thing, which I think does speak to an under very, very well, and also makes me very interested in Bournemouth at home with their home crowd in front of them, or in front of their home crowd, especially if Crystal Palace move to a favorite. I don't know the suspensions are that big of a deal. Tompkins is out. I can't remember exactly who the other Crystal Palace player they sent off was, but I don't necessarily think they are, or I think it's pretty clear Crystal Palace are a great home team and a team you want to look to bet against on the road. They really struggle to score goals, I feel like, at home, but they do have the crowd behind them there, and that's what kind of changes their performances. But on the road, I really look to Bournemouth at home. I feel like they've been a great home underdog, and really just a great team to bet this whole season. And I also lean to that under 2.25, because I don't really see where the goals are going to come from. Bournemouth likely are going to try to get you on a set piece, because there's going to be a lot of counterattacking involved here. But that to me sounds like a stalemate. And hopefully these managers have gotten into their teams about how bad the defenses have been. Bournemouth conceding 2, Crystal Palace conceding 3. I feel like both will have a new lease on life, or a new focus on defending and trying to keep that clean sheet. Moving next to Manchester City hosting Everton. Man City, a 2.5 goal favorite. Over under is 3.5. This looks like a really scary situation for Everton. Already mentioned the ridiculous collapse killed my under, unfortunately, but also ridiculous to give 3 points to Wolves, bottom of the league at that point. Everton should have at least gotten out of there with a draw, or a home win is probably a more likely scenario. Wolves were really just trying to get to the final whistle, and Everton made a huge mistake. I don't think that's going to change the Everton strategy or their lineup. I think you blame James Tarkowski for that, but also Mykolenko just having no idea how to defend seems to be a problem for Everton, and some of them, the money they've invested, the little money that they have, they've invested it in players that don't really seem to be difference makers, which is part of why Everton are in the discussion to get relegated, and our team that I thought is a long shot to get relegated were worth looking at entering the season. Man City, on the other hand, are just going to smash teams. Unfortunately, at home, I don't really see, and I kind of don't even want to talk about this ever anymore, because I don't have any interest in Everton. And I feel like over 3.5 is probably, it's hard for me on the total there, because I don't think Everton are going to contribute. And it really depends on how long it takes Manchester City to score. And I think they'll score a lot. Next, we'll go Newcastle and Leeds. Newcastle, a 1.25 goal favorite. Over under is 3. Leeds with a good showing, I guess, against Manchester City. They were obstinate. They were stubborn, but they lost 3-1 and were behind 3-0. So I'm not really sure what to expect there. I still think Leeds are too aggressive. I don't like that going on the road against a team that's playing better than almost anybody, certainly way above expectations. Newcastle trying to fight their way into Champions League, which would be such an incredible success for them this season. Newcastle's goal scoring is still questionable to me, but their defense is not questionable. And I think Leeds are going to have plenty of opportunities. Also think Newcastle's home crowd is maybe the best in the league at this point. At least Spurs results just as well as the Crystal Palace, which I guess Crystal Palace is more of an overperformance based on their talent, but you could probably say that about Newcastle as well. So I don't really have an interest in Leeds getting a goal in a quarter. I mean, it's a big number for them, but they deserve a big number because they're going against a really top team. And I don't really like their strategy for unders. I got to say, even getting that important push on 3. Fulham then hosts Southampton. Currently, Fulham a 0.5 goal favorite. Over under is 2.75, and Fulham are going to play really aggressively. I think that works for them at home, especially against bottom of the league teams like Southampton. I think a lot of people expected Fulham to be one of those bottom of the league teams entering this season, but that side has been great, and it's really hard to find any faults with kind of how they've been going. They get a Southampton side that has really sold off a lot of their older players. They're really young, went really young, sacked their manager. And I don't really have high expectations for Southampton in any sort of format. Their defense is horrible last weekend against Brighton. Their goalkeeper was bad. Their defense was bad. I mean, everyone was bad. They missed a penalty. I mean, literally everything that could have gone wrong did. Fulham, on the other hand, played against 9 players, and Mitrovic looked great despite going away to the World Cup. I guess the Serbian team didn't go that far, so he had a long time to train, but I don't really see an interest for me in Southampton, and I don't really have a feeling. I guess I'd lean to over 2 3/4, though I don't really know where the goals come from. And I feel like if you're playing over, you want both teams to contribute. And I don't really think, I think Southampton's going to go there and try to stall out as much as they can. I don't think that's a great thing for them, though. I think they need to score to match Fulham, and I don't think that's going to work very well. The nightcap on Saturday is Brighton hosting Arsenal. Currently, Brighton a quarter goal underdog with all the juice on Arsenal. Over under is 2.5. And I can't really say I understand this line. It seems really, really cheap on Arsenal. Maybe that is a good sign for Brighton that the market is supporting them. But I just feel like Brighton and under Roberto De Zerbi is not going to be the same team as Graham Potter. I feel like they got really fortunate on the road at Southampton last weekend, and I don't think that'll happen again. I feel like Brighton are a team I want to sell moving forward, whereas Arsenal, I feel like Gabriel Jesus' injury kind of makes them look a lot worse than they actually are. He really wasn't firing after a great start to the season, really hadn't done much in a while. And Arsenal are really a team of young players that have a lot of talent, and they're scoring goals from their wingbacks, their fullbacks, like all over the place. So I don't even know that not having an important striker or a focal point at striker is that big of a deal. I think Arsenal are too cheap here. I think a quarter goal favorite is far below where they should be. Over under, I think I lean to the over because I think Brighton are eventually going to come out and be this offensive team. I don't know that they necessarily were against Southampton despite scoring 3 goals, but Arsenal can certainly score a bunch. So I think I lean over into Arsenal in that one, which is a little bit surprising based on every podcast that I do. And now moving to the new year, January 1st, we have Tottenham hosting Aston Villa. Currently Tottenham, a 3/4 goal favorite, coming off a huge comeback to get a 2-2 draw at Brentford. Over under is 2 3/4 in this one. And I'm kind of at a questioning point with Aston Villa. I still believe in Unai Emery and their defensive setup, though it was horrible against Liverpool despite being at home. This is going to be a tougher one, but Tottenham are going to cede possession and try to counterattack you to death. I think Unai Emery is going to be familiar with that, and that's the style he wants to play against the big clubs. I think especially on the road, they're going to be even more defensive, especially when they had such a bad performance coming out of the break. I'm really hoping this one moves to a full +1 because I do want that full goal of insurance, but I still like Aston Villa getting 3/4 of a goal here. It's hard for me to believe that Tottenham will win matches with their strategy, even at home. It's hard for me to believe that they're going to win lopsided matches. So a single goal victory would only take half your unit right now. And I think +1 is very realistic when we get to the early match on Sunday, January 1st. And I lean to under 2 3/4 because I just don't think that Tottenham are going to be that efficient scoring goals. I think Aston Villa have to prove that they are back into a defensive mode, but I think Unai Emery will make that happen. And I got to say, I lean to Aston Villa, the dog, and to the under. And last but not least, Nottingham Forest will host Chelsea, getting 3/4 of a goal right now. Over under is 2.5. And that seems like a pretty short number to me. I feel like Chelsea will move. They have almost all the juice right now. Likely will move to a full goal favorite, but Nottingham Forest, I thought they've had some ups and downs this year, despite and to me changes in strategies. Unfortunately, having their goalkeeper unavailable to them because he was on loan from Manchester United resulted, although there were some big saves in the second half. Just a terrible goal conceded by Hennessy, the Welsh keeper, to give Manchester United a second goal, which essentially lost the game. Though if Nottingham Forest had that goal stand at the end of the first half, it might have been different coming out in the second and only needed one. Chelsea on their hand, I don't trust them to score goals. And going on the road, I think they've had some really poor performances on the road so far. I think that under 2.5 is probably more interesting to me, at least until I get that +1 on Nottingham Forest. But if that number comes about, I think I'll be interested in the underdog as well as that under 2.5. And so that is the first part of our, betting the pitch 154. I'm going to go through and go touch on the French league and then come back, circle back with a best bet from France and then compare that with a best bet from England to make my ultimate best bet. And of course, there'll be some other things coming through in the middle, reading out my most recent and favorite review, because every most recent one that I haven't read is a favorite because I need as many reviews on Apple Podcasts as possible. But now to go to France. So these matches are on New Year's Day and January 2nd. So we got a couple days. There's still some French soccer going on, or excuse me, some Spanish soccer going on today. But we'll start with Angers hosting Lorient. Currently, Angers a pick'em with more of the juice on Lorient. Over under is 2.5. Angers are just looking like a team that's going to get relegated. I think I tipped them 2 seasons ago to be relegated. They hung around, but I'm not sure this year, especially with 4 teams going down, they will be around, which is sad. But Lorient with a really bad performance coming out of the break after a really good start to the season. They're certainly a team that the market has not liked and is expecting to come down. But 2 teams that at Pick'em, not much for me to do with. And I don't think there's a lot of goal scoring in either of these teams. Lorient want to counterattack, and Angers, unfortunately, they have to start pushing for wins because I don't know that. I mean, I guess a home draw would be nice to get them off an 8-game losing streak or something like that. But I guess under 2.5 would be my lean. And that one, Monaco and Stade Brestois. Currently Monaco a 1.25 goal favorite. Over under is 3. And Monaco with a crazy performance. I think they went ahead 1-0, 2-1, and 3-2 to win their opener. 17-year-old in his debut scoring 2 goals to take the lead and then win the match was incredible. Stade Brestois, they're a defensive team that are going on the road, and I don't really love Monaco's home court or home field advantage. I don't think it's as strong as it gets credit for. But I don't know that they necessarily need the crowd because they're scoring a ton of goals and they have a lot of talent. I think that Brest going in there are going to try to hang on for dear life, and getting more than a goal is interesting, but I don't know if that's necessarily enough. I don't think that Brest will be able to contribute much to that over under either. So, but it's really hard to play unders with Monaco because they can score a ton of goals. FC Nantes then hosts Angers. Currently Nantes a 0.5 goal favorite. Over under is 2.5. And I just don't know where goals are going to come from. Nantes had a goalless draw coming out of the break. Angers are going to do their best to go on the road as a newly promoted side and just try to keep Nantes from scoring. Nantes don't have to balance the 2 competitions right now, which they clearly weren't ready for in the first half of the season. That helps them, but ultimately, I still don't know where they're going to get 3 goals combined in this matchup. So I lean to under 2.5. I like that a lot more than Angers, which I'm trying, if I'm going to back an under, to also like the road team. I do like for the under that they're not going to likely contribute much Angers scoring. But I do want them to, I want to have a little bit bigger of a belief in them competing because the road is really tough, especially for bad teams. Toulouse then hosts Ajaccio. Currently Toulouse a 0.5 goal favorite. Over under is 2.5. And Toulouse, they have really good young talent. They weren't able to score much against Marseille. And unfortunately, their defense has been pretty wide open, especially coming into the break. They had a really rough stretch of matches. Ajaccio can't really score those. That's a nice thing for Toulouse. They are going to be on the front foot. Ajaccio are going to try to defend. And I don't really like that combination. I think this is a get right game for Toulouse, giving 0.5 goal. I feel like that's not enough for me to want to back Ajaccio. And I got to say, with Toulouse's strategy of really being front footed, even against the biggest clubs in France, you're really going to hope for Ajaccio to not score and to really keep Toulouse out of the back of the net to make that under 2.5 hit. So I feel like I lean to over in that one. And I don't think I like playing those in this sport unless I feel like both teams can contribute. Lyon then hosts Clermont Foot. Currently Lyon a 1.25 goal favorite. Over under is 3. They scored a ton of goals in their return to action. Clermont Foot, really the market has not liked them at all this season. And I don't know that going into a really tough place to play with a team that's guns blazing, scoring a ton of goals, is a really good situation for an underdog. So 1.25 doesn't seem like enough to me. I almost feel like I lean over 3. That's a lot of goals for another road team that I don't think will contribute much. Racing Club de Lens hosts PSG without Neymar and probably without Messi. I don't know that he'll be back for this one, maybe off as a substitute. But Lens are a 1/4 goal underdog at home. Over under is 2.75. And I was really hoping to back Lens here, but only getting a 1/4 goal, even from a team like PSG without Neymar, potentially with Mbappe and Messi, just feels like too short of a number. I think Lens are going to play on the front foot. They're going to be aggressive, which is going to give PSG the counterattack that they want. That's a really tough combination, I got to say. I think based on I'm curious in the lineups here, and if Messi is available, I don't know that he's necessarily that important to PSG. But certainly after that World Cup run, hard to really say too many negative things because he was so good in Qatar. But I think I lean over 2.75 to anything in this one because I think Lens are going to put the strategy forward to score a bunch. I don't think they're going to try to sit back and defend, though I think that would probably be the better strategy. That's just not really who they are. And I think I'm most interested in Lens if they climb a lot for the goal spread, but without Neymar, that's clearly impacting this line a little bit as he's suspended for a second yellow for diving, which is hilarious. But I just don't know there's enough there for Lens. And even if PSG get bet up to a half of a goal, I still don't even know if that's enough for me. Try not to fade the best teams in the world. And I think PSG are a close 1B to Manchester City 1A. Moving to Monday, Strasbourg hosts Stade Troyes. Currently Strasbourg, a 3/4 goal favorite, over under is 2 3/4. And I have no idea where that comes from. Strasbourg have not been able to score goals this year. They're built as 3 strikers that can all score goals, but they haven't done it this season. They were bottom of the league, I want to say, which is crazy considering they were a near European finisher last season, if not for falling off towards the end of the season. Stade Troyes are not exactly the same team they were either. They sold off a lot of players and are trying to hang in the league, as most of the teams at the bottom, or just really anybody in France at this point besides PSG and whoever's at the top. I think Strasbourg giving 3/4 of the goal when they haven't shown they can score is puzzling. Definitely makes me think the market loves Strasbourg here because it should be lower. You get a little bit more juice on Troyes at the moment, but even at a half of a goal, I think I'm still interested in Troyes. Over under, I think it's going to be hard for goals to be scored in this one because they haven't done it. Ultimately, I think Strasbourg had a really good performance against PSG, but you got to think about the tax on the legs and the fatigue that comes from having to defend and being so focused on defending on the road at the Parc des Princes. And I just don't really like that setup, and think Strasbourg are going to have to prove that they deserve to be a favorite like this against a team that's been more competitive than they have this season. Lille and host Reims. Currently Lille a 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice, likely climbing to 1. Reims played really well. And I feel like they're rounding into a team that I want to back again. They were so good to me last season. I've not really been on them as much this year. Got a new manager, had to replace center back, who's really important, in Wout Faes, also their goalkeeper, and Rakovic, who went to Mallorca. I do really like Reims. I like them a lot more when they get to +1. Lille were really having trouble offensively. The commentator was even saying, "Oh, this looks like a goalless draw. Hopefully it's not going to be." And then Lille scored twice. I think under 2 3/4 is also interesting. I don't know that I believe necessarily as much in Lille. They certainly didn't have the strongest lineup in that opener, but I think I like Reims especially more if it gets to +1, and I like that under 2 3/4 as we speak. That's very juicy the under right now. Montpellier then hosts Marseille in a great return to action for Montpellier, their first clean sheet in what felt like a decade. Montpellier 3/4 goal underdog at home. Over under is 2 3/4, and there's not a lot of defense that's going to be played in this one. Marseille is going to be attacking the whole time. Montpellier don't have much defense to speak of, so even if they want to defend, they won't be able to do it very well. That doesn't make me want to back a home underdog, especially off a really good performance. I like that over 2 3/4 more than anything. And last but not least, Stade Rennais host Olympique Gymnastique Club de Nice. Or Rennes and Nice. Rennes a half a goal favorite with all the juice. Over under is 2.5. And Rennes has some really bad performances in them, which unfortunately makes me worried about their future and really how they're going to compete in the Europa League as they move through the competition. They really just look terrible, and they make some bad mistakes. Their goalkeeper, Steffi Mandanda, basically got left behind by Marseille and basically sent out. And I think there's good reason for it because he's makes some really, really bad mistakes. Good penalty saver, I guess, but you hope to not give too many of those away. Nice, I feel like, are a team that's young, that is rebuilding and is still in the project, and losing Christophe Galtier to PSG was a big problem for him. I don't necessarily love Nice, but I feel like Rennes have to show a little bit more consistency. They've got a lot of young players, but also a lot of not young players that should be doing better than they are. I think half of a goal is probably fair based on how Rennes, that cutback offense is awesome. But I like Nice the higher this gets. It looks like it's going to trend towards 3/4 and maybe get something to do there. So before I recap my French, I guess, thoughts for the January 1st and 2nd calendar, and then go through the Premier League as well. Going to try to keep doing this at least till I run out of reviews. Please leave more reviews if you got them. I really appreciate it. I got a review from Mike Totola. G Warner has been money betting the World Cup 2022. Stay hot, with a fire emoji. I love the emojis. Thank you very much. Follow G Warner on Twitter as well as the title. Appreciate that. Mike Totola, you're the best. Thank you for coming through with that. Looking forward for the next one coming through as well. And of course, please keep the good thoughts flowing in. So to recap Ligue 1 for January 1st and 2nd, Angers Lorient, not much for me to do there. I like under 2.5 of anything. Don't want to fade Monaco with Brest. Don't have an under to lean there either. I do like under in the Nantes Alger under 2.5. Toulouse Ajaccio, not much for me to do there. Lyon Clermont, same story. Lens, I'd like to be a bigger underdog at home to PSG. Very interested in what the lineups look like, and I guess I lean over 2 3/4. If anything, which does not feel great for a home underdog or an underdog in general. Moving to Monday, I like Troyes getting 3/4 of a goal from Strasbourg, as well as under 2 3/4. I like Reims. I'm waiting for +1 there. I think I like that a lot better than I do like an under 2 3/4. I lean that way as well. Montpellier, Marseille, I think over 2 3/4 if anything, but not really a big fan of overs in this sport. Though if there's ever one, it's probably that one because I don't know who's going to defend in that one. Rennes and Nice, I guess I lean to Nice a little bit at +1/2. I like 3/4 better if it gets there. But don't really have a feel for the total because I feel like the Nice defense is not that strong and Rennes can certainly score goals. My best bet for Ligue 1 for this episode 154 will be Troyes +3/4 of a goal at Strasbourg. I just think Strasbourg have struggled too much to score goals. I lean under 2 3/4 almost equally, but I think just playing against the Strasbourg team that hasn't been able to score is my biggest interest there. Stay tuned. We'll have ultimate best bet. We'll go through the Premier League now. Like Brentford getting 1/2 of a goal from West Ham, also under 2.5. Nothing really for me on Liverpool or Leicester. Wolves, Manchester United under 2.5 based on Wolves not being able to score, but I do worry that Manchester United are going to have some counterattacking opportunities. Bournemouth, I really like, hoping they move to 1/4 of a goal underdog. Also like under 2 1/4 in that game against Crystal Palace. Manchester City, Everton, skip. Newcastle, Leeds, skip. Fulham, Southampton, skip. Brighton, Arsenal. Arsenal seems like they're too cheap right now to me. I like over 2.5 in that one. If anything, really like Aston Villa +3/4, but I want them to be +1 against Tottenham. I lean to under 2 3/4 there as well. And I lean to Nottingham Forest. Want to see a +1. Don't have that yet. Like under 2.5 better. But my best bet for England will be the Crystal Palace and visiting Bournemouth under 2 1/4. And please follow me on Twitter, @thereal_G Warner. If you're able to, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We'll read the next one that I got on the list for the next episode. Or if you're on YouTube, please hit subscribe. The ultimate best bet for this podcast will be the Bournemouth Crystal Palace under 2 1/4. Hard to go back to the well for unders. They were so good to me in the World Cup, and we're not starting the year off, or I guess starting the restart off in the Premier League, but still like that way, still lean that way. And I don't see a lot of goals scored in that one. I think both teams focus on defense, and under 2 1/4 will get you done. Again, please hit the follow button, @thereal_G Warner on Twitter if you want to interact there. I'll take the positivity as always, the negativity as well. Trying to get back restarted. It was a really good World Cup, not a good start so far to the second half, but we're going to turn that around really quickly. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. As always, talk to you soon.